Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? My name is Olivia Estelle. I am excited for this live today. I am just getting my camera all set up, making sure it's all on here. So I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I have some great questions. I just want to just kind of talk about some housekeeping stuff first. Just check in, see how you guys all are. If at any time my internet or camera kind of goes out, let me know on there if you're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm not sure about my connectivity today, so just feel free to let me know if you missed something over here so I can kind of tell. Sometimes it's not obvious on my end, but awesome. I sent out a newsletter that I'm getting really excited about as I'm writing them. I'm just like, ooh, and this and this and this. So super fun for me. Thank you for those of you that have allowed me into your email inbox and signed up for my newsletter on my website. You can also read it if you don't want it in your inbox. You can read it on my Facebook. I post each month. So those are monthly, once a month, kind of tells you the date of my planned live, kind of gives you my current energy update, and then just really whatever else is, I feel really pertinent. But yes, you guys, so I am so excited. I'm just going to start down the line. Hello, Elfern. Hello, Empire of the Light. It looks like Dana can't be here tonight, but I have your question. So that's really exciting. And I also have a question from Savannah that I got emailed that we're going to discuss. But thank you, Elfern. Hi, Olivia. Can't wait to hear you speak about. Yes, so I mentioned in the newsletter, I was talking about discussing the Travis Scott concert tragedy, as well as the positive side of the hybrid program. It's something that I have kind of not gotten to yet. It's something that I talk about one-on-one with my clients when they bring it up. But I know that in my lives, I've gotten into the grays and my own triggers and traumas with them, but I haven't really gotten into the positive aspects of the positive programs, what's going on with the Pleiadians, essentially. So I will totally get into that. I don't know if I'm going to dive right in. I think I'm going to answer a few questions first, but Empire of the Light, when did you know you had the gift? So that's a really sweet question. I'm going to say it was really late. I didn't know until late 20s, maybe even 30s, to be honest, which is odd because I was put from first grade on in the gifted pool at school in this like program where they take you out, like a pull out program, I think. And many schools have those. We just comes to the gift. It's saying my connection is unstable, but I'm just gonna keep continuing. So yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought it was intelligence. I thought I was smart. I didn't know that it was intuitive. I didn't know it was intuition. I would always get told I was odd. I would get told you're so strange. Like, and it wasn't for lack of being able to fit in, which is weird. Like I could fit in, but I also didn't. So I had both experiences. It was a really strange. And so when I finally realized, oh, it was actually, I saw someone do a gallery reading. It was very interesting, actually. I'm glad you asked this question. I watched a woman do a gallery reading and I was like, oh my gosh, this is possible. She had a big group of people and she went around and did a reading for people. I mean, she had so many people, she had to draw names out of a hat. And I watched it and I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that. Can I do that? No. And I was just like, I could never do that. There's no way. But I just kept I kept it in the back of my mind. And then I went and had a reading, an intuitive reading with someone. I was told her name twice. So I'm like, okay, if I keep hearing the name of someone, I was just in that place where I went to go see those people. So I went and saw her and she was like, "You are psychic." And I was like, "Really?" Okay, it didn't really mean much to me at the time. I didn't know what to do, but suddenly I was like, "Okay." I remember going home and kind of being like, "Interesting." And then coming back wanting to do intuition development and super gung ho, and it just never stopped from there. And then it all came crumbling down. Like all the walls kind of came crumbling down, but all the pieces started. I was like, "Oh," all the pieces started making sense. My life started making sense. Once I had that missing piece, the missing psychic piece, where everything was all logical, or it's intelligence, then I was able to, okay, so I am figuring out what I'm doing psychically. I was able to realize how it was natural. So that's such a common, thing for everyone when they're developing their gifts. So I'm sure you guys have had this experience too. So let me know in the chat. Hi, Beck. It's so good to see you. I can't stay, but I wanted to say hi. Thank you so much for popping in. It's so good to feel you. And I am sending you all my love your way. I'm hearing about Australia. I know it's getting locked down or getting really strict there, which is not cool. And here in the States, they're actually kind of pushing off mandates. They're really able to hold it off. Airlines are um, walking out. They're striking. So there's not that we're actually kind of getting. They're not saying it. They're not like admitting it. They're saying, "Oh, it's weather," but people are striking and things are getting kind of pushed back. So we will see. Hi, Dylan. Thank you for being here. I love seeing familiar names. It's so good to see you guys and feel your energy. Yes. And so Empire of the Light, yes, it does make sense. I feel you probably are going through this process right now. It feels very familiar. It feels very close. So I feel like if I had to tell people um, on the intuitive path would be to just keep going. Just keep going. There are so many things about intuition development that are initiations, ego traps, things that are kind of, they'll kind of take, meant to take you down. But if you keep going, you've grown, you've gotten stronger, you've gotten over a hurdle. And so just keep going. It's like, even if you, aren't sure, get some help and keep going. Keep at it. So hello, Barb. It's so great to see you. Hello, Poeta en la Luna. I love your name. That's very beautiful. First time. Welcome. I'm glad to see you. So I'm going to start back up to the top, which I had a question from Dana. Hi, have you ever read for a client and had it be the exact thing you needed to hear yourself? Yes. All the time. I did a reading that completely resonated with the other person, but also felt like it was for me. So Dana, yes, totally. That absolutely happens when we're doing, especially working as an intuitive. We tend to draw resonant people to us. We draw people that have been through the same things we have. The law of resonance just kind of just draws them in. So I think when I first started, I found those times kind of scary. Like I kind of questioned myself and I was like, "Oh, I'm just projecting. I'm just projecting myself into this reading." You know, I wasn't able to really understand that, the resonance piece then, but I just kind of kept going. I was like, I feel like I'm projecting, but this is what I'm getting. And I would ask them, like, give it to me again, give it to me again. And I would just be like, it's what I'm getting. But I felt like, okay, this is for me. So yes, but then once it started happening more often, I realized, that the resonance it is intended to serve us because those people who resonate with our experience, kind of come for that transmission that is your experience. I mean, I just found that sometimes just being like, yes, that has happened to me. I could feel almost like wounds unwinding, like the trauma unwinds just by knowing, okay, someone else has been through this. I'm not crazy. I can speak about it. I'm validated maybe for the first time in forever. So all of those things are really important and beautiful in readings. And it's not always just, about being right. And, we have to get ourselves out of the way. We do. I always, would start by setting the intention of kind of getting out of my own way, putting my biases aside. And that is always a work in progress. It is always really what an intuitive has to do. But there was still always a piece where I'm like, yep, that's for me. Thanks. I'm like, thank you, got it. That message is, and I'll say it too. I'll be like, this is for me too. This is something that I need to hear. It's not just you. And so, but my guides also like to give me when someone needs a message, like when someone is asking a question, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, they're wounded in the place of not being heard. My guides will give it to me in my wounds. They'll say like, they'll kind of explain it like, how, what, and so I'll often use me in my description with people. I'll kind of put myself in there like, this is what I do when I'm not feeling heard. I tend to do blah, blah, blah. Right. And so the other person isn't feeling like attacked. They're not feeling but they're also feeling like they're not alone, right? They're not the only person struggling with not feeling heard at all. None of us are alone in our wounds. We just feel that way. So that's how I do that in my readings, and that's kind of how my guides just tend to work. And you get into a style once you keep going. Your style kind of develops, and so that is just what has happened with mine. And so on to my next one from Savannah Montgomery. And I don't know if you are here today, but you had a really great question. So here, I feel like the last few weeks have been a crash course in learning and honoring my own personal limits. I don't know how many else of you also feel like this, but I know that I do. I feel like I have hardly tolerance for things that otherwise would have never bothered me, like turning the TV on. I feel emotionally and psychologically tender, so to speak. I feel as though my ego is judging me for being weak, unproductive, selfish. How to discern when I have reached my limit and honor my need to step back without letting my ego bully me? Such a great question. So, yes, totally. I first of all, for me, this will kind of come and go in cycles. Some weeks, it'll kind of come back. So some weeks are better than others, I feel like. But really, right now is a really intense time, really, for everyone. I'm kind of hearing it from all sides. I'm feeling it, and then I'm here. Everyone's just like, ah. So yes, and then right now, especially ideas like not tolerating things that used to not bother you, like having the TV on. For me, that comes in like cycles of sensitivity. Sometimes I can handle something like a TV show or something that's kind of have like dark themes. And other times I'm like, I can't right now. And this will just kind of take me to a place I don't want to go. And maybe I'm like dealing with something, or, maybe something's kind of coming up, or I'm like, it just, or I'm working with, it's like too close with stuff I'm working with. So I do go through times where things bother me that don't usually. And I kind of see it as like cycles of sensitivity, kind of cycling into sensitivity. And so I really honor them. I'm really like, okay, I just can't handle this today. And I try try not to be like dogmatic about it. Like, no, that's dark. I don't like that. You know, I try to just be like, I can't handle it today. I try not to put it on the thing. I try to kind of own it as mine. But I totally have this. And so emotionally and psychologically tender is a really, it sounds, Savannah, like you're really good at naming and labeling what you're feeling. And so that's a really good um, trait to have in the whole world of sensitivity and sensitives and just navigating as a mystic, intuitive. Yes. And so I feel as though my ego is judging me for being weak, unproductive, and selfish. That is a thing that I get to when it comes to, and Claire Gordon, yes, I cannot deal with commercials on TV either. Like I really, really commercials drive me a little bit nuts. I'll at least mute them. But the idea of the ego kind of coming in and feeling like self-judgment, like unproductive, those kind of old programs where we feel not good enough. It's like not whenever I'm kind of in like a more sensitive phase, sometimes it's because some of my old stuff is coming up, like just old programs that I had growing up, you know, being kind of just raised in a certain authoritarian style where we're taught, you know, to always be productive. I think now I turn on for my kids Thomas the Tank Engine, and they're obsessed with being useful, and it drives me crazy. I'm like, being useful is such a like we don't have to be useful all the time. But that was something that was really driven home and kind of old, you know, old time kind of philosophy. And so, yet we do have to kind of discern when we've reached our limit. And we know we've kind of reached our limit when we're kind of hypersensitive. Because usually when I'm feeling strong, feeling good, I can handle things. Like I'm like, okay, I'm not triggered by things. And so I kind of tend to take the responsibility for that. Like, okay, I'm just not feeling it right now. And I don't judge myself. I'm not like I'm weak or I'm unproductive. I let myself be weak and unproductive. I'm like, I'm just not going to do that this week. Like, I'm going to be really easy on myself. And I really watch those thoughts. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be hard on myself and let myself feel bad. I'm going to be really neutral toward myself so that I don't just kind of let my ego run away with things. So that, and that is, I also think that that's kind of part of the intuitive cycle when it and healing cycle. As we grow as intuitives, as our, you know, intuition starts growing, as we start using it more, as we get more into the flow, we do tend to kind of hit more of these kind of pockets, like hit more of these sensitive times. And it is our job to honor them. It is our job to be like, oh, there it is. You know, I'm feeling tired. For me, what would happen is if I didn't honor it, I would get sick. Like I would have to honor it. Like my body would be like, nope, now you're resting, whether you wanted to or not. So now I'm like, I'm just going to lie around and not feel guilty. It is an art though. I had to get good at that. I wasn't naturally good at that. I think it took me a while to really build up that ability. So just keep going. That might be our theme for today. It's just keep going. So yeah, just that is what I would do there. And so moving right along. So yes. Okay. Kind of one of the questions that I keep getting. Well, first, before I start, I did want to know, did any of you guys do metta meditation or loving kindness heart meditation? I mentioned it in the newsletter, but it was basically about how I talk a lot about focus concentration meditation for clearing and for healing. But I have recently really started focusing on metta or loving kindness meditation, where you focus on the heart and you focus on expanding the heart and literally just sending love to everyone. People, places, the earth, other planets, you just expand your heart and it's a love practice of sending love. And that practice I was finding was bringing feelings of bliss, like just bringing beautiful feelings of just high vibration. Like I just felt amazing and I felt so much stronger. Like I felt more into the flow. And then before, I would feel peace, I would feel neutrality with concentration meditation. Kind of my issues, my triggers and traumas were being addressed with that. But I wasn't adding, in the loving kindness meditation piece, I wasn't really adding the focusing on the heart, consciously focusing on the heart and consciously expanding it every time I meditated. So it was kind of like I would just be kind of left, very neutral, which was very nice from where I used to be. But now I'm really like, I'm really loving this metta meditation and I'm actually doing that. Oh good, Barb. Yes, I'm glad you I'm like, yes, I'm glad you got it too. So, and Claire, and you'll do that before you go to sleep. I love that. That's totally something that I have started doing. And I taught in the indie era. Hi, I taught this to my children just a few weeks ago. Now trying to get it into our daily lives. I love that. It's so helpful. It's so helpful for just for bliss, for joy, for clearing a space, for shifting your energy. So I really, really recommend loving kindness. Buddhists call it metta meditation as a way to kind of pull, the frequency back up, to kind of pull through this time. Because I think like the holidays are just going to be kind of just there's a lot of unknowns. And so just keeping focused on the heart, keeping focused on loving everyone rather than allowing like this us versus them kind of mentality to take over, remembering that loving kindness, remembering that bliss and how much better it is than being angry at other people or being victimized by other people. So that is what I just wanted to follow up with you guys on. But for sure, I wanted to talk about this whole Travis Scott concert tragedy. Everyone is talking about it, everyone is asking me about it, and it is hard to talk about because it is so soon. And there were and that's a good point, Claire. What you give, you do receive. That's absolutely a really great point that I left out. That's one of the reasons why it's so worth it to do metta. But when it comes to the Travis Scott concert, there were people that lost their lives, and that's a really sensitive area. And so what I don't want to do is I'm not really here to victim blame or to blame anyone, because I know I just did, once I started looking into it, I was like, whoa, like, is that what I think I'm seeing? Is that a weird bird with like red eyes? So I started looking. I didn't know who this person was. I was like, who is this? And so I start watching some of the other, concerts, and I'm like, what is going on with all of these concerts? There were caged birds, and I'm like, there's nothing about this energy that I like. So I kept looking into it and seeing, yeah. So I kept kind of looking into it and looking at just the symbolism around the whole thing. And obviously, it's very obvious kind of what's going on. But then I started reading, these just really kind of angry articles, about, this is a satanic ritual. And it is. I mean, that's really what it is. However, it's really important to remember that it takes human action to carry out those rituals. It takes humans to be party to these rituals. And so I was noticing some of the flavor of the stuff that I was reading was it was as if these people were taken over and were zombies and kind of powerless, and really they kind of were powerless because they were all so just crammed in. But it really is, people have to kind of agree. People have to agree to partake in these things. People kind of have to, they're seeing the symbolism and they're thinking it's okay, or they're downplaying it just because a big part is also because there is so much Christian trauma, there is so much fundamentalist trauma out there in the world. I mean, there is a big there's problems with fundamentalism and dogma, and there's a lot of traumatized people that come out of religion, and they tend to kind of swing out into atheism. And that swinging out into that kind of apathy out there is a really, really dangerous place to be, because you kind of tend to go into thinking that everything's silly, and you throw out everything. And I mean, thinking that this kind of symbolism is silly is kind of a protection in itself. You're not afraid, your fear isn't resonating with it. So some of it is a form, you're sometimes ignorance is a form of protection, because let me tell you what these entities don't like is when you see them, when you talk about them, right? That's kind of when they're like, they're looking back at you. And so that is what really that's kind of what the problem is when people now, you have everyone, like looking into it and getting just kind of sucked into this hole almost of psychically researching satanic rituals. Don't do that. Like it really, it's true, it's real. Satanic rituals, they're true, they're happening, and you're not wrong, to research them, but don't get like sucked into it. It can be very, I was like feeling myself being pulled in. It was like my own morbid curiosity. I mean, I am nothing if not curious. Like I am the cat without any lives left because I'm so, so, so curious. But I was just feeling pulled. It was like my curiosity was really being pulled into this one. And I remember that feeling from, my really early days of kind of awakening and opening my eyes to dark things or dark truths in the world, which are there. Evil does exist. It does. And these satanic rituals, that's a thing. I mean, that's what that was. But it did take human action. It did take, or human inaction on the part of the concert, place. But all of this stuff, all of the symbolism, all of that stuff is set up by the people, by the producers. They're the ones that you have to look at, honestly. I mean, we can really talk about Travis Scott's level of involvement. Sometimes I look at celebrities and I'm like, they really don't know what they're doing. They're really not like they're just kind of participating. But sometimes I look at them and I'm like, they're completely complicit. They're like 100% in. They're 100% kind of taken over. And so kind of with him, it's like he knows, like he knows what he's doing, but there is still a piece of him that doesn't. There is still a piece of him that kind of thinks like that is compartmental, that's really disassociated. And so that's the piece that kind of throws people off. People are like, does he, like he really he is able to believe his own lies that he's telling them, and that is often what happens when these people or celebrities kind of get further and further along in their society that they've involved themselves with, that has promised them fame. And so that is, and I have known some of these people personally and have been like, I personally witnessed these, and they do like these, they have ritual days, like specific days are important for them, and that time when it happened is kind of like that Halloween, kind of portal is an important kind of time for that to occur, for these rituals to occur. So yes, it was absolutely a satanic ritual. The whole idea that it's satanic panic is kind of gaslighting, but there truly is problems with fundamentalist dogma and the kinds of pitchforks that fundamentalists will tend to hold about this. That's satanic, when really it's like, well, yeah, it really is satanic, but it takes a different approach to be effective, is how I would see it. I don't think that anyone looking really like, I don't think it really works for anyone. Anyone at the concert, having people out like, "This is satanic." Everyone's gonna be like, "That's just not effective." What I think is more effective is really kind of showing, breaking down the people that are really showing the symbolism and breaking it down and putting it out there, being like, "This is this means this." And that's what's happening now. Like the age of Aquarius is here. The secrets are out. What used to be part of a mystery school is now kind of on the internet, right? So we used to go to mystery schools to find out about kind of like these dark factions, these darker factions, and we would be supported with learning about them. We would have the proper support when we were ready emotionally, would we be given information about kind of what these other groups are doing, what these kind of darker, what these, how and who they're summoning, exactly why, and ultimately they're not powerful. They're not at all powerful. They require people to give all of their energy, more and more and more energy, and the way that they work is really by amplifying addiction, amplifying our weaknesses. And that's how they kind of pulled, that's how they pulled it off at that concert. It really wasn't like a the people weren't zombies. Like they were just participating. Now, was there a charge? Like, was there suddenly like a switch that was turned on that made like the crowd surge? I do feel that. I do feel like it was suddenly like, okay, and then that's kind of, if the vessel was like, if someone was really out of it, like really drunk, it kind of could get pulled in or, kind of infested at that time. And so that is really what I feel like happens at these concerts. It's kind of just a feeding frenzy. If you have energy to spare, come and we will come and take it. And you've agreed to, because here you are. And that's how it works. That's just how it works. So that would be what I would have to say about that. And yes, so Elf Fern, images I saw looked very AI in a portal. Yes, super AI, super portal. I mean, totally a portal. I mean, I remember being in my crib and looking through the bars, and in a red circular like tunnel like opened up, and it was all red and lit up inside, like backlit, and it was all gross and like lumpy almost. It looked so much like the one that was behind him, even with the, like, there were lines in it. It looked like the lumps that I saw as a kid. It was just really, really, really gross, really nasty, like, not a portal you would want to go into under any circumstance. Oh, and that night was Kris Jenner's, 66th birthday. That is interesting. Isn't that funny? You know? Once you start putting the pieces together, it's really, you're not you're not crazy. Like it really, it's a thing. It's happening. So yay, Dana, you made it. Welcome to this wonderful, lovely subject. And Phoebe, hi, how do you deal with extreme sensitivity? I don't want to turn off my emotions, but sometimes the intuitive senses get too overwhelming and I don't know how to ground my senses besides ignoring them. Totally get it. Yeah. I'm just kind of reading that again. Yeah. When it comes to extreme sensitivity, I would always find that I would be more grounded after I meditated. So when I would hit those times of like really ungroundedness, really what grounded me the most, besides getting out in nature, which I always suggest, that would ground me, but meditation. Once I would do a lot of meditation, it would be like my social anxiety would be gone. I would be really social. And I would think it would be the other way around. That's kind of what I would have assumed. But I'm always really able to take on more, to just I can take on more after I have done some meditation. It's kind of like, once we get quiet and get back to ourselves, get back into ourselves, that's when we can really that's when I think we're our most grounded. We're our most embodied. So really, sometimes the intuitive senses can get overwhelming. And so what I would really say is to really embody. I would do the body scanning meditations. They call it Vipassana, where you can just really feel your body, just get back into your body and do normal non-psychic stuff. Like I do all I'm always taking breaks. Like I take breaks from researching anything. I take breaks from doing psychic things. I'll consciously close down. I will consciously visualize, myself kind of just connected to my higher self, and that's it, nothing else, like no psychic. And I do it before walking into like busy places like Whole Foods, or like if I'm about to walk into a mall or a grocery store, I tend to kind of I put on like conscious blinders, because I don't need to be feeling what everyone's feeling. I don't need to be knowing anything about anyone ever, really, unless I'm doing a reading, unless they're asking. That's kind of my philosophy. It doesn't, I mean, things will kind of come anyway, but my philosophy is to really just keep things tight, keep things ethical, because truly we're really not supposed to be reading other people unless they ask. So to me, it was always like, okay, I'm going to keep myself focused. I'm going to keep myself focused on myself. What am I feeling right now? Rather than kind of being open and feeling others. And so that's kind of what I do if I'm feeling overwhelmed. I also eat grounding foods when I'm overwhelmed. That's just me, like root vegetables. Sometimes I'll eat meat, like when I'm just feeling really overwhelmed, something to kind of stop the flow. And food tends to kind of stop the flow. And it's not that I would recommend that for everyone. That's just what I do. And it sometimes I have to watch it not to do too much. So that's that would be something you could think about, because definitely just kind of like biting into a carrot has like a grounding sensation. You're back in your body. It's back to like you're back to that forager DNA. So that's kind of a grounding thing for me as well when it comes to overwhelm. And also doing nothing and resting, allowing yourself to rest by myself. If I can get solitude, I always choose solitude. But, at home. Hello, Dylan. Hey, do you know what the deal is with Capricorn? That is a really fun, very fun, open-ended question. So tell me what you mean by Capricorn. Just Capricorn energy in general? Because Capricorn energy in general is actually rather a sensitive energy. It is opposite from the Cancer. So it's ruled by Saturn. Capricorn can be very intense. Capricorn can also be, super. There's also kind of like a martyr energy with Capricorn. Like they tend to kind of be like, just like really kind of take that intense emotionality, like intense sensitivity to like to almost like a new place. And that's really the driving force behind them being sharp or forceful, which is what they're known for. They're kind of known, that symbolism is kind of known for like sharpness and force, and that Saturn is kind of known to be like, the taskmaster, not necessarily easy. But Capricorn energy is really all about practicality. Practicality is corner of Capricorn. They tend to be very special. A Capricorn is a half goat, half fish. It is a mythical creature. So Capricorns really are able to pull, you have the fish, you have the watery psychic nature, and then the goat. The goat was, all throughout mythology, the goat was the evil animal, right? Because you had the lamb that was good and the goat that was evil. But really, if you've ever been around those animals, sheep are really just kind of like, whereas goats are like, what's next? Let's get into it. They're kind of all about the adventure. They're the ones that love playing, free will. Let's go get it. Let's eat it. Let's do what, goats are like, I'll eat anything. I'll do anything. So that you mix the two, like a goat and a fish, two opposing things. That's really what Capricorn is here doing. You're pulling like higher energy and pulling lower energy, and you're meeting it and integrating it in the middle. It's ultimately what the Capricorn is about. Generally, that's kind of like the higher energy of generality. Like if you are if you are, if that's like your if you're a Capricorn sun, or a Capricorn rising. So that that's really what I think about Capricorns. Capricorns can also, and it depends on, what I have noticed is the sun sign of something tends to kind of be more of the better qualities, and the rising sign is kind of where you get some of the negative qualities out more. The rising is where we have to work on the negative side of that sign. So whatever your rising is, you tend to kind of fall more like into the negative personality traits, like all of us do. And so that's really kind of what we're working on, and that can be what people can see sometimes if you're completely unconscious and not working on yourself. But so Capricorns kind of have like the widest range, which I think is really, really special. Like they can be very like blunt and forceful and direct, but also super emotionally vulnerable. I'm a Gemini, and so I see a Capricorn, and I'm like, what are you? Like, I don't know how you can go from one end, go the depths. Like, it's a wide range. So yeah. Let's see. I thank you, Jacobin. Thank you for being here. Okay, yes. The overwhelm I used to be an issue for me. Empire of the Light. I feel what will be kind of vibe, and let go. I love that. That's a really, really great, surrender is really always kind of a good way to go in the psychic development world. Just kind of like, okay, this is how it is. Labeling it, feeling, allowing yourself to get back to neutral with it, being like, I feel overwhelmed. Okay, I'm going to stop judging myself about that. I'm going to let myself be overwhelmed. I'm going to step back. I'm going to say no to things, right? Saying no is a big theme right now. I'm really seeing that everywhere, where saying no, is kind of a symbolic act. Like it's just very much part of the collective consciousness right now. So yes, thank you, Dylan. Yeah, that's Barb. That's my best impression of a goat. You are welcome. Claire, have you ever shared your birth chart with us? Having taken in your energy for a while now, I'm so curious what your chart looks like. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm a Gemini. I'm a Gemini sun. And so that is why I can basically talk for an hour straight without taking a breath, and just talk and go and go and go and go. And it's another reason why I really have to work on being grounded, and keep myself from repeating myself, but also one step at a time, right? Geminis are really, really like scattered. We get out everywhere, but we also like to talk. And so here I am here meeting with all of you guys to really just get that. And when you're a Gemini sun too, and a Gemini rising and a Sag moon. See, that's really cool. You have like both ends of the spectrum. Gemini and Sag are opposite each other. So that's very cool. And the Indie era, Cap Sun, Gemini rising here. I feel exposed. Yeah, Capricorns. To have a split Cap gem, that's really confusing, like I would say, because on one hand, you're really grounded. On another hand, you're not grounded. You're really like, I want to expand. I want to learn more. I need more information. But really, like emotionally, you have to catch up to it, with that kind of a Capricorn sun, Gemini rising. Like that Capricorn has to kind of catch up to the Gemini's information building. And so that it's a thing. What us Geminis, we love that information. And right now, the US's chart, I believe it's the US, has North Node in Gemini. Let me see. Am I being right about that? I don't know. Right now, okay. So everyone right now, the North Node is in Gemini right now. It's about to change. It's about to kind of go to Taurus. So right now, everyone, like the collective, is in an information gathering phase. One of the big themes that everyone is going to kind of do, I think, like next month, is going to realize, okay, we have enough information. Now we need to act on it. We need to build off of it. We need to do something with it. We're not in gathering phase anymore. We're in building phase. We can make something beautiful finally out of all the information we've gathered. So yes. So Michaela and the bees. Hi. As a child, I used to faint quite often. It was like my body shut down by pain or overwhelm. I wonder if that was a coping mechanism for my sensitivity. Now I've been learning how to cope and ground. Yeah. Yes. Yes, totally. Then the fainting, it can absolutely be. Yeah, I wonder, coping mechanism for my sensitivity for sure. It's like, okay, I'm out of the body. And then there's also, it's almost like doctors would call it like low blood sugar. Like they have these, names for you're hypoglycemic, you pass out, when really the psychic is seeing someone who's on overwhelm. Like, I would get really lightheaded when I would walk into a crowded room, like a cafeteria. I'd have to like stop and be like, oh my God, and you just hear everyone talking, that thunderous roar of a crowd. Yeah, that would be like, that's kind of where I get like, okay, don't pass out. Like, I need to get back in my body. But it would tend, when I was a kid, it would tend to be something where food actually would help. And so they thought it was hypoglycemia. They didn't realize it was grounding. So again, that's, yeah, learning how to cope and ground and kind of stay in your body, like feel your body in the moment, was something I really had to develop. So yes, coping mechanism for sensitivity. Sensitives have so many coping mechanisms that we've all had to deal with over, like all of you could probably go back to your childhood and be like, what was mine? What did I do to kind of stay safe? Like, what did I do to ground when there was no grounding to be had? Had to go to school. What did I do? And so lots of the things, medical terms for just coping mechanisms. Yes. Awesome. Hi, Melanie9. So glad to see you. Question: what way do you like to heal fractures in personality and bring both sides to a whole? Well, fractures in personality, I kind of like to get those fractures talking. My own personal kind of way is to kind of get them on the same page with each other, to get them to understand. So a fraction, you think of it like a family, like you have a family member that won't talk to the other family member. In order to kind of bring that family back together, you kind of have to get them talking to each other. Like, here's my side of the story. Here's this side of the story. They both have their own sides of the story for a reason. The fractures in personality happens for a reason. It's because of trauma. And so the trauma, first of all, the trauma really kind of just requires energy healing, like requires healing energy, extra life force to really build up enough energy to heal in the first place. And so that's what, if someone has like a fractured personality, energy healing is really, really, really helpful, as well as acupuncture, actually. Acupuncture just kind of opens up the meridians, opens up more energy, and having more energy and more flow allows the kind of the hurt pieces to be able to relax again. And we really can't, think about, if you have like a family feud, they're really only going to be talking if they're able to relax. If it's a situation that is not heated, they have to both be kind of like, their guard has to be down. They have to feel safe. So they can be like, oh, hey, you start with like hey, and then you kind of warm up, and then maybe one side addresses it. Maybe they don't, but that would be what I like to do to kind of bring both sides to a whole. It would be a regression work. It would be kind of under the relaxed and altered state of hypnosis, so that one side could kind of come in and the other, and that might have to happen in person. I would probably suggest some of these really traumatic things. It's really helpful um, if these sessions happen in person. If you can get someone, to stand with you in person and really help the just the fractures come back together. Hold that energy to heal. Okay. So yes, so the indie era, serious confusion, Aquarius moon isn't helpful. That absolutely. Cap sun, Gemini rising, Aquarius moon. That's a lot. You just go way far out there, especially with a Gemini and then Aquarius. It's like, woo, let's, like, the sky's the limit. You're just going out there. So, Jacob, hi there, Estelle. If you're willing, I'd love to hear, what have you enjoyed most during your week? What a fun question. What have I enjoyed most during my week? I really have enjoyed I really, really enjoy doing my work. I really enjoy doing my sessions with you guys. Like, I really love um, just the opportunity to kind of get in there and channel and work with questions that someone else needs, rather than kind of just being like a vacuum and just working by myself. If you have someone else, like you guys here with me, it's like talking to a screen is talking to a screen. But if you have other people that are engaging, then it becomes an energy play, like an energy dynamic. And so that I really enjoyed that most this week. I also have just, had some family time, family dinners, staying by the fireplace. That's that's what I have enjoyed this week. So thank you. And Jacobin, when I was a little kid, I would imagine a force field around me when I was sleeping. I have a faint memory of protecting myself from something else. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's very necessary, really, for psychic children. Psychic children learn to do that very early. They learn to imagine a force field around them as a sort of, as a protection. And so that's I love that you have that memory of just doing it naturally, because I really do think that these things are natural. And I really do feel like, you know, the things that we do as psychic children just naturally is really what it's kind of all about. It's really about just getting back to remembering these things. So it's getting back to remembering when we were children and when we were clear, right? Because when we were clear, we kind of naturally put up, nope. Like, I see you coming through here, but just that's a nope. I'm gonna put this force field up, and then now we're like, oh, we're not as society has us grow up, we don't really get to, we don't really get to, like, have that natural, it's almost like an inborn protection as easily as we did, when we were in the flow state. And so getting back into that is really what the intuitive and mystic life is about. Intuitive development is just getting back into that natural flow state when, we would just automatically have that force field up, and protecting yourself, when it comes to psychic children, we often, and I sometimes do the force field. Yeah, I mean, I do too. It just, psychic kids are like little lights, and so things tend to just kind of come around and just check it out like a little, rubbernecker. And that's just, how it goes. And I think As in any time, when there is any kind of example of psychic attack, they can't really do anything. But when we're kids, they just stand there and they're trying to like, or adults, they're trying to incite fear. They're trying to get a reaction. They're trying to get people to react to them so that they have this low vibration because that is their food source, right? So it's just bless them, and send them on their way because it's really just if they're starved out, they're not going to stick around. If there is no food there, they don't hang around. If there's no fear, if there's no, they move on. And so with kids and psychic kids, things kind of tend to just come through and just like check it out. And it doesn't always mean something. Sometimes it's in the house. Sometimes it's attached to the parents. I've seen that. It's happened to me. Sometimes it's haunted house, but sometimes it's just things just checking in. So that would be a good, example of like, natural psychic defense, because psychic attacks can really only get you where you're weak and it try to blow those up, like try to get into, wherever your addictive patterns are and try to like manipulate it. And if you're like, nope, I feel that, you label it, moving on. So yes, let's see. Michaela and the bees. How do you maintain your intuition flowing in a meditation practice once you have a newborn? Specifically if you're sleep deprived. Oh gosh, such a good question. So, especially if you're sleep deprived, it's the worst. So I do the best you can. If you have a newborn and you are, in that, in the intuition you're developing and you're meditating and you've got a good flow, really, just keeping that momentum going up until you have the baby. But once you have a newborn, I don't know if you've had them yet or not, but once you do have them and you are sleep deprived, it's like just be super gentle on yourself. The whole process is very meditative, repetitive. You're kind of in this kind of repetitive meditate, either you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding and what like the feedings. So for me, I would just kind of sit there and meditate during the feedings, or I would sleep. One would kind of turn into the other, and so I would do the lying latch, lay down, latch them on, fall asleep. It's really just that is what I would do. And I just be really easy on yourself. If you have a newborn and a meditation practice, it is not the time, especially if you're sleep deprived, it's not the time to be telling yourself that you should be meditating more. It's really just be really easy on yourself. Just being able to get through the day with a newborn sometimes is a great thing. So just no guilt or pressure, do what you can. See if you can kind of get into the flow with like washing bottles is like a meditation, is, breastfeeding meditations where it's just super, super easy and really informal. That's what I did. I just kind of threw all formality aside. I enjoy kind of the formality of a sit, like sitting, I don't know if you can see it, sitting on my meditation cushion. Like I kind of enjoy the formality of it. But when I had newborns, no formalities to, any of those things. So one of the okay, really funny. I like how I was talking about psychic attack right when like the troll showed up. It's like, hey, it's such a good example. We're gonna use you as an example. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for playing. Okay. And I love that Empire of the Light that you do the force field thing now. I think it's really, really good. And housework. Housework is a meditation, really. It's so boring and repetitive. So just kind of turn those boring, repetitive things into a meditation. That's something that you can kind of just be really present with your body, really present with what you're doing, with washing, whatever it is. Laundry turned into like, oh my God, I would dread it and I just wouldn't do it. And I would sit there and then it kind of turned into like, okay, folding clothes is, some meditation, and that whole finishing what I started thing really helped me too, to kind of carry on the energy and have more energy. So yes. Okay, Poeta en la Luna. I love your name. How to do metta and heart practices when I don't feel loved, nor when I don't feel loved nor loved. How to awaken the heart and generate loving emotions when you don't feel it. I feel my heart is in a cage. That is a beautiful question, because it's like you're already, it's like I you think your heart is in a cage, but yet you're able to admit this is a really good sign. That you're like, I don't feel it. Like I'm labeling that I don't feel it. I'm claiming it. It's a vulnerability. Sometimes if we can't really get into the heart, like we can't feel loving kindness, or we really just don't feel like being all love. Really, sometimes vulnerability is the next best thing. Really, just being able to label how we feel, the vulnerable act of being with ourselves, wherever we are, sometimes is just really the next best thing. So, what I do, I mean, when I feel my heart is in a cage, I just feel it. I feel the cage. I'm like, okay, I can feel that. I feel sometimes I feel it's like almost sore, like around it, where I'm like, okay, I feel that, and I'll just focus on it, and I'll kind of keep my focus on it anyway. And then when I'm really not feeling loved, or when I'm really not feeling in the mood, not feeling love, I actually fake it till I make it. That is that is what I do. I really just I fake it. I'm kind of like, okay, if I knew what it felt like, what would it feel like? and I and I kind of create it, and I'm like, maybe it would feel like this. I would picture or tune into the best next thing, like the next best thing, the best thing that I could tune into then. Sometimes it's just a smile. Like I'll meditate with a smile on my face, not because I'm happy, but because I want to hold. It's almost like, speaking something into existence. You want to hold that energy, bring that to the meditation, because maybe it's not easy. So if I'm not feeling loved, sometimes um I'll just be like, I'm just gonna tune in and create it right now. I'm gonna create it. Do I know how it feels? Do I remember it from my past? Have I ever felt it before? I'm tuned into that right now and really feel it, and maybe try to expand it. Or I'll just pretend like if I were feeling love right now, what would that feel like? And tune in and just work with that. Sometimes just focusing your attention on the middle of the body, on that heart center, can help you get there, and can at least create a shift that starts kind of breaking down like the cage. And then if it's really not working for me and I'm really kind of stuck, I get energy work. I go see, I have my husband work on me, or because he does this kind of work. And so I go see someone, so that I get help. So that is what I have found to help. So yes. Hi, SM. Hello. Sending love. Thank you for being here. Phoebe Smith. Hi, another question. Could you explain more on what gifted kids are being used for and why, or how they're found so young? Curious if you have info, because your videos on the topic are great. So, yeah. So when it comes to gifted kids, really, it was like a national pull-out program. So it was like, this is very, um, just very normal, okay? This is totally normal. They wanted to make everything seem very normal. Like, this is okay, it's happening everywhere, right? Because really, they were testing for abilities like remote viewing and psychic ability. Like, one of the questions in the test was, okay, which letter doesn't belong? And then I would see capital U, capital O, capital S, capital A. And that would be one of the questions. And I was, and we're like, you're just kind of like, you're a kid, you have no idea what kind of test you're walking into. So I just circle A, because there's no curvy lines, right? And so that's the kind of thing that they're testing. They're not testing logic, they're testing something else. And so obviously now, to me, I'm like, and I think Mensa does the same thing. There's like a connection between these like gifted talented programs and Mensa. It's about, they're calling it like intelligence, but really it's a spatial awareness. It's not just pure intellect. It has to do with different types of the brain working in different ways. Like, they would show a shape, like a cube shape, and be like, what does the back of this look like? And then they would show different pictures and you would like pick. And so that's spatial awareness. Dentists are really good at that. Like you can kind of see, around and into space. Like architects are really good at that. Really, so that awareness would be that awareness is kind of what psychic ability is. Like an expanded awareness. They would like give me a tray and let me look at it and then take it away and like ask me what I would remember. Or they would send me into a room and be like, what's different about this room? And I would have to pick out what was new or different, So you're like, why is this in school? Like this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. So they're found so how they're found so young. Well, everyone was asked in kindergarten, hey, do you want to test into this group for special smart kids? It starts in first grade, and all the parents are like, yes, sign us up. We want our kid to be the smartest, right? It got everyone in the ego. That's how they got everyone. They got everyone because they wanted to kind of be the best, be the smartest, and be special. What I would see though is in some places, some of kind of like the worst places, or like in the army base places, like especially if it was like a base city, they would do something where it was like the opposite. They would call them the normal kids. For me it was called AIM, but for them it was called the normal kids. So the normal kids all got to leave school, and it was like really like a program in itself to call them the normal kids, as if, kind of dumbing down what they're doing. And then you had these other programs where kids were getting kicked out publicly, like public humiliation and rejection, kind of. And they're still to this day as adults talking to me about this, and it's painful, right? And it just goes to show what that early wound can do. This early wound of building up the ego and then rejection publicly, and were the teachers really aware? No, like I don't think so. Not all of them, most of them not. But what they would do is they would interview me and then send the tape off somewhere. Like, who were they sending it off to? Who are these people? Like, what I don't know. Like, and that's where you get into government contractors, is what they call themselves. And then who they answer to is, you know, no, top secret. So that kind of a thing is like, it's different for every place, but also kind of eerily the same. And so are they all evil? No. Actually, AIM was the best time I had in education ever, in all of my years of being in schooling, through college, through any of it. And as soon as I got out of elementary school, they took it out. Like, they took that program out. They changed it. They kind of enacted more controls. It was almost like it might have worked too well. Like, it might have actually made us too happy. Like, they took away that program, which was really sad, I thought, because it was such a good program. Except I thought all kids should have been in it. It shouldn't have just been us, and it shouldn't have just been like, and then the whole studying, singling kids out and then sending that away. That's kind of that is what they were kind of being used for. And it was usually kids that were being either like watched or followed due to having military connections. So I had a grandfather who was a spy, and they just followed their family. Like, they follow these kids. He worked in the Pentagon. I mean, if your grandfather not only worked all over the world, but if you have that connection, they follow down the family line. It's epigenetic. They kind of know that, I have some of the foundation that he had. Some of the abilities might have been passed down. Let's check and see if any of his abilities are passed down. Let's see if they're. And so that's the kind of stuff. And there was also a hard push to try to get me to join the military or the CIA. Like, I remember landing on the CIA homepage many times when I was lost in my 20s. Like, what am I doing with my life? I should just do this and be a spy. It'll be glamorous, right? So thankful my higher self stepped in and and stopped so many things that I my Gemini mind took me to. But yes, that is what I see gifted. So when it comes to what gifted kids are being used for me, it was remote viewing certain targets. It had to do with off-planet targets often. And for me, it was also communication with extraterrestrial beings. Kind of like, we see this ship in sector T927. What is their intention? And it would be very like the old timey, like it was always men too. And so I would have to just kind of I would just kind of go. Like I would just kind of say what I would get. And then I did actually at one point, and this memory came up, but it was just recently validated. It was one of like the most I was like, thank you for seeing that because someone else kind of saw it and mentioned it to me. But I was talking to someone I was communicating with, kind of the head honcho, and he was making, and they were asking me like, what do you think? And I was like, he's lying. And all that is when kind of all hell broke loose. It's when I kind of called him out. I mean, I think that he's still kind of like is mad at me about that, honestly. And it was one of those moments where when you talk about like being attacked, like that, remembering that process of remembering that has been really like, they did not want me to remember that. They did not want, really, they don't want any of the kids that have been kind of taken out and used in this way. See, I was given like little cups to drink and then wouldn't remember. And before I know it, I'm walking down hallways that look like hospital, there's no windows. I don't know where I am, right? Like, and I'm kind of seeing above myself because at this point I've been drugged. Like I'm like not in the same brainwave. I'm in a different kind of even more psychic brainwave. But in order to get those memories back, I kind of had to get back into psychic development. I had to get back into I had to inhabit those brainwaves again in order to get those memories back. Some of these are deep brainwaves. Like, I don't know what they are. I mean, like deep, I'm getting like gamma, or something that's not really quite charted. But as intuition development happened for me, like these, the memories started coming back, and I'm like, oh, that's why that it just explains so many things. Like, that's why I'm not, they're really trying to make sure I'm not calling anyone out. Like, they're really trying to make sure I'm not naming any names. Like, I don't really have any names to name. So it's like, I can't really take anyone down. But what they want to make sure is that I'm never empowered enough to be able to kind of call it like I see it and call things out, because as a kid, that it really affect I don't know, I didn't know why everyone was angry, because it wasn't about me. And I wasn't the only, kid that they used. They would try different kids and be like, okay, what is his intent? But it was like, he's lying. And then I remember like kind of explaining why, and being accurate about that made everyone really mad. And so that was one of my biggest psychic wounds, actually. That's one of my biggest psychic wounds with the Greys specifically. So I will just leave that there. We'll kind of keep moving on and see what else comes up. Empire of the Light. Aren't psychics born into certain family dynasties? I remember Gigi Young, interesting, was talking about the soul being born into families that had that genetic trait so they could do the work of the soul. Yes, there is totally family dynasties. Yes, there is like a psychic bloodline thing. It had to, it's almost like it has to happen. Like, you have to kind of go into a bloodline where it works, where, and that can be, by this point, those family lines, can be really heavy, like can be really, it can be really hard to incarnate into them. But as light workers, we're called to, like, we're kind of called to come in and help, the genetic lines lift themselves back up. So, but yeah, certain family dynasties, that's kind of why they call it like the psychic bloodlines, or, the original bloodlines. Well, ultimately, those original bloodlines are very, very diluted by now. And that is actually, in my personal opinion, the way I see it, that actually makes them stronger. Just like how you don't want just like one race, like, let's keep racial purity. I'm like, ugh, no, like it clearly starts degenerating. So it's like these bloodlines, when one royal bloodline kind of mixed with another royal bloodline is even stronger. And especially when epigenetics was kind of mixed in, when you had families, you had, like the grandmother who was a really great meditator, you know, and then her grandchild marries another grandchild of another, a grandfather that was really, he was like a, Egyptologist that was really into meditating, and he loved, working with, he was an artist or whatever, and they have, they kind of join their bloodline and they have kids. It's like an even stronger effect. That is what I have seen, especially so I think melding specific bloodlines is something that they're, like, interested in doing, and that is actually part of the hybrid program. Like, that's part of the hybrid programs, and that's why kinda, like, the royals are so specific about, marriage and weddings, and it's yes, so that's why, psychics talking about soul being born into families. Um, yeah. So definitely the soul will choose, especially if you have that life purpose of really needing the intuition, or really, being a mystic, of really developing further. You will incarnate into families that have, that genetic trait for sure, and particularly so that it's fostered. Sometimes, sometimes I there's so many psychic families that it's just some of the most shut down, just because they've had to shut everything down. And so at that point, they're incarnating to kind of to heal everyone, like to help people, you know, come back to themselves. Really, it's really ancestor work. So yeah, so DNA memory for sure. Yes. So taking a little breather, making sure I got everyone. I hope I got everyone's questions, and that I covered everything. Yeah. One of the things that I did kind of want to talk about was, yeah, so is it important for us to know our lineage? It's a good question. It is. I think it can be. It can be very, yes, to connect deeper with ourselves. It can be very